Okay, so here's the official start. Thanks everyone for your patience. So this is the Critical Mass Soundscapes info session. Once again, I'm the chair of Critical Mass, Miles Bowman, and with me on the line is
Debbie Beatty. I'm the program director for Critical Mass.
Awesome. So we're just going to go through a quick info session, and after that time, we'll get to the live questions and answers. So welcome everyone. Thank you again for calling in on the long weekend. We're just letting you know a quick intro to Critical Mass, the organization that we are. We bring contemporary art to our community in Port Hope for all to experience because we believe art challenges how we see the world and our place within it. Today we'll feature just the project overview, that is what makes up this project. We'll outline the available positions, and then we'll go into the live question period so that people can have their specific questions answered. One of the first things that you might be wondering about is, why are you making art and putting out positions during a pandemic? What we've noticed and moving into this is that social distancing has really changed how people use technology and appreciate art. Turns out we put in the proposal for this before the pandemic hit, but which makes us feel just a little bit psychic in the way that things unfolded. But the project was laid out for people to be interacting using technology, wandering around, and then lo and behold, the pandemic hit, and this is really friendly to the pandemic audience. So we want to embrace those things and the way that people have started to use technology to continue to enjoy art, and fully launch this program. So some of the key things that we've noticed is that solitary art consumption has really bumped itself up. So we're looking at how people explore and interact with spaces and how that might be changing as the result of the pandemic. People have really been latching onto the notion of having the freedom to explore. So we want to make sure that people can continue to experience Port Hope on their terms. And lastly, a big thing that we've gotten feedback on is that people like art when it's fun. And so we want to continue to pursue artistic approaches that allow exploration, education, and engagement. So the key question that we started all of this project with was, how do rural communities record and preserve ideas about shared spaces and events? So that gets into questions of exploring place and identity. That is, when you have public spaces, who gets to be the keeper of those spaces? Who gets to tell the stories about a place, and how do those stories get preserved? Most particularly, how are those spaces interpreted when there's competing stories? So one of the big answers for that is story, and in particular, we're interested in the way that sound is used as the mechanism by which story is transmitted. So with a little help from your smartphone, we've pursued that idea. So we're going to say that we come to know spaces by the stories we hear and the ways these stories shape our understanding. And so one of the things that we're asking for contributors to this project to think about how the different sounds that you experience in different places will influence how you interpret those spaces, etc. How can you have your interpretation of a space changed through the auditory feedback that you're getting, or the stories that you're interpreting? And part of that gets us into our first necessary acknowledgement. So Port Hope itself is on the traditional territory of the Mississauga Nations, and we want to acknowledge that, and that this project will be taking place on those spaces. So that's something for potential people who are working for this project to carefully consider and to weigh in as to like how that will influence their interpretations. So how does this all work? We're proposing a Port Hope Soundscape app, which will deliver sound files at GPS-marked locations, and audiences will reinterpret Port Hope's cultural spaces based on those sound files. So the whole proposal is meant to be allowing audiences to listen anytime, and really the anywhere relative to in Port Hope. They can wander around, and then they can have the GPS system guide them to where the sound file is meant to be launched. And the anything is also important. We want whoever's working on the project to really run with it. For the artists that are applying, we want you to determine, using your artistic interpretation, how you want the audiences to engage with those spaces. So at the end of it, users will explore Port Hope using their feet and their phones, but what they experience of Port Hope will be up to you. Some quick project goals then. Here's what we want to happen. We want to animate public space. So all of this will be taking place in areas that are accessible to the public and should be readily available to the public. What we're hoping for is that those spaces will be invigorated with new interpretations and ways of exploring space. We also are interested in project proposals that actively engage the public. So if you are thinking about ways that you want to have audience participation or interaction with your project, we're totally behind that. And that's a big thing that we're looking for in successful proposals. And lastly, we want to elevate Port Hope. The whole purpose of this is to have audiences engage with and be interested in, but also remember Port Hope. So what we've done in this section here is give you a couple of different potential examples of people who might engage with the project. These are for illustration purposes only, and this is just to help you as potential workers on the project to think about ways that you might approach how you're developing things. The examples here are not hard and fast. We're just trying to give you some inspiration ideas. So our first example is April, and so she's lived in Port Hope her whole life. April's been interested in learning some of the history about Port Hope, especially Ward 2. If you're not familiar with Port Hope, there's two wards. There's the agricultural ward of Ward 2 and the urban ward of Ward 1. There's an ongoing sort of an investment in making sure that stories and collaborations between those two wards continue so that the community feels like all of those people are contributors to the community. And so she just only realized that she knows very little about Port Hope's agricultural heritage. And so she may be the type of consumer that engages with the app to learn more about Port Hope's history. We also have Jun. She's heard about Port Hope and the salmon run online, and she wants to see what it has to offer. So Port Hope has the Ganaraska River running through it, and a lot of visitors come to examine, especially during the fish run, the fish going through the river, and that's a big part of our tourism industry. So Jun visited Port Hope with a group of other tourists speaking a different language and making anything beyond a simple transaction a challenge. So one of our questions for all of you as developers is how can Jun enjoy a signature Port Hope event with minimal English engagement, which is to say language doesn't need to be the principal focus of the products that we result in here. So not all stories need language to be told, and how else can you experience your project without a language specific focus? Daryl is another person that we're having you think about. So he recently moved to Port Hope and commutes to Toronto. He loves what we have to offer, but also has limited access to our stories because he doesn't know many residents yet. So he's recently heard that Port Hope has a nuclear past, but doesn't know what that means. And so that might be an additional way for him to learn about Port Hope's history through an app like this. We also have Clark. So Clark's a young fellow that lives in town, and his mom wants him to be able to learn and explore outside. So they spend a lot of time outside with their headphones on, listening to apps together. And they've been frequenting a place that's called Monkey Mountain in Port Hope, listening to podcasts. But those podcasts haven't been telling them about their own spaces. And so, for example, they don't know that Monkey Mountain is a significant Indigenous historical site. And so we want you thinking about ways in which the Port Hope app may be able to convey some of that important information about our history and the spaces that people explore. So importantly, our last bit is that we know that there's a lot of walking tours out there, and so we want you thinking really carefully about differentiating this from just a simple walking tour. We want it to be more than just an informational walk going from like house A to house B. We want you to be creative with the way that the app works and what it could do. And we also want you to think modularly. So this is intended to be the first step in a multiple series of projects that build upon each other. And so we want you thinking about how your contribution could feed into others. and how technologies could be added to future developments of this project to make it more immersive and interactive. So holding all this together is our program director, and that's Debbie Beatty. Again, she's on the line with me, and so I'm just going to pass things over to her so that she can convey some of the particulars about how you would work on this project and explain a little bit more about the positions.
Okay, thanks, Miles. Do we want to check the waiting room for a quick second and see if there are any other participants waiting?
Yes, I can try that. I'm not seeing any.
Okay, great. All right. Yes, so I will be the touch point for artists, coders, app developers, and user experience consultants. Miles, do you want to go to the next slide? I think you're.
Yeah.
So as Miles said earlier, he outlined the program goals. This is a pilot project that's funded by Ontario Trillium Foundation, and it's to deliver sound art to users through the GPS guided walking app. And we need 3 positions. We need 2 artists, we need somebody to develop the app, and user experience consultant who can make sure that it's user friendly and also art forward in its design. So I believe we have mentioned that these positions, if there's a team that already has an artist and a coder that would be willing to work together, that's great. We're willing to accept collective applications. Just do them separately and notify us within the application. But there will be 2 separate artists who will have their soundscape on the app. Next slide. Okay, so there's some links in these slides where you can go directly to the information for each position. So for the artists, we have 28 to 40 weeks to develop your soundscape, and our budget for that is $7,500. We don't have the equipment for you, so that's something that you would need to have on your own or be able to source that, and we can help with some of the logistical aspects, but in terms of time and budget, this is what we have to allow for the pilot project. There's more information on the link. All right, so for next slide, we should have coders, I believe, Miles.
No, it's usability consultant.
Oh, usability, okay. So usability is a $2,500 budget to consult as necessary. So that'll be important for consulting at the start of the project and also towards the end while we're testing to make sure that this is no longer beta and is user-friendly and perfect for engagement. So all the information for that call for the RFP is in that link provided as well. And the next slide will be for our coders and app developers. We have 32 weeks to develop the app and up to $40,000 budget to produce a working app. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions with regards to how to develop the app, and really we're looking to get some answers from app developers as well in terms of best practices around how this will have a long shelf life. We want to add on to this project. It's pilot for now with 2 artists, but we want to see what we can do to grow this experience for the community. So the information for the application is in the link provided on the right there. Next slide. The deadlines for everyone are September 17th, which is a Thursday, just by midnight. We'll have our deliberation committee going through all the applications between the 18th and the 30th, and we will notify individuals for interviews after the 30th and notification of our final selection by October 6th. So we are going to do this fairly quickly. So on the next slide. Yeah, and who are we looking for? Port Hope is a really engaged community. We're like outgoing and friendly, and we want to know the community wants to know what's happening and what people are bringing to the community. So we're looking for socially engaged individuals to lead this pilot project. We've highlighted emerging to mid-career as entry into the pilot, but if you're beyond that as well and the budget looks good to you and you're interested in this project, then please do apply as well. Individuals are collectives, as I've said earlier, and self-sufficient with your own equipment, and ideally that you can easily commute to Port Hope because there will be some engagement needed with the community. We do have a space that you could work from also for interviews or any sort of community engagements. It's a little train station in the middle of the urban part of town. Yeah, so last thoughts. This is a project that has the potential to bring a lasting impact to Port Hope. We'll want you to, in your applications, follow some milestones, what you're able to do, and by when. We're going to, in the next slide, provide a couple testimonials about some people who have worked with critical mass, and a quote of inspiration that kind of sums up our philosophy on art making. And in the next slides, you'll find out what comes next and how you can find out more throughout this process. Okay, so once October 6th, we're going to notify the successful applicants and hire the team to begin work on the app construction. So it'll be important that both the artists and the app developer and user consultants can collaborate together at this stage with stakeholders from critical mass. In November, this is a good opportunity to collect stories from residents and create a Port Hope story registry if that is part of your project proposal. By April, we're hoping to have a beta version ready for limited testing with community stakeholders. And then June, we would like to reveal the working app to the public. By September, this is our project completion date. So that will, between June and September, any bugs will have been worked out. And in December, our requirements to Trillium is to deliver a final report. So we'll want to make sure that we have some time to analyze the data from the user's experience with the app between April and September. So those are the milestones. Yeah, so I think we've asked before if you're interested in working individually or if you are part of a collective. I know there are at least one or two individuals on the call that have a team in mind. And so just to keep in mind that if you do have an existing team, that there would be additional collaboration with an additional artist. And if there are questions after this presentation and after our Q&A session, you are most welcome to contact me directly, and we can schedule a call and go through some additional questions. So you can reach me at the email below at info@criticalmassart.com, and then I'll provide you with my phone number and we'll set up a time to chat. All right. I'll leave this this slide for you to go through about some quotes from artists that have worked with us. We do really embrace artists in the community that work with us, and we create kind of a family environment. And I think it's really important that the artists feel appreciated and valued and paid for their work, and do have really great integration with their experiences with our community. And so we try to deliver that with each project. And then there's a quote here from Maria Popova that resonates with us. And she said, "Art is not only a form of consciousness accessible to all, but a form of citizenship. That the responsibility for its making, the rights of its enjoyment, and the dialogue between the two are an essential and natural part of our civic conscience." And yeah, that's quite beautiful. Okay, so yeah, we're really wishing you a lot of success in your applications. We realize it's a lot of work, and we're going to get to those Q&As so you can flesh out some of your questions. And to be successful in your application, really keep in mind our project goals that Miles was talking about at the outset of the presentation. Keep your your applications concise and easy to understand. Be mindful of the word limits that we have, and you know, ensure that you can balance it in your mind.
Huh?
Okay. But yeah, keep it creative. Keep it on word count. Keep it on budget, and dazzle us. We're really looking forward to what you have interpreted as part of this project. So now we're at the